Trevor with a bit of history about Play Hard Sports. So you and Rad founded it in 1993. Maybe if you can give the audience a bit of a sense of who Play Hard Sports is.
Okay. Play Hard Sports started off in 1992. My wife and I were living in Sydney, and we invented a spring tension basketball ring. And we invented that because I was a poor basketballer, so I'd go around to the schools at weekends to train, and I found the rings were either missing or they were bent. So after some time I invented this thing, then put a patent on it, and then I met a fellow inventor who took me to Chicago and displayed the product at the exhibition there, and we met a company over there, and they liked what we had. And the short story is we had a license agreement drawn up, and they manufactured that product over a 10-year period. And so back at home, we got a local company to make the ring for us. We sent some leaflets out to schools, and we then boxed the product up, sent them out. And then things took off from there. People then wanted backboards, so we spray a backboard up against their fence. Then they wanted poles, so we worked out how to make a basketball pole. And then people wanted netball rings, etc. So it just grew from there.
So there's a couple of themes that are going to come out in this discussion. One is a bit of innovation. And Trevor will say yes to everything, which is fantastic. And there's a other theme of persistence, which once you get to know Trevor, he doesn't say no, or you can't say no to him. He's got to come back and you've got to engage. Now we're going to take you back to 2016, and you can see on the screen there the 10-pole throwing cage that was the international standard at the time. And as a very humble procurement officer in 2016, struggling to deliver the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games, we were told that Mondo, the international supplier, was the only ones we could do. So sitting there one day after doing about 50 or 60 hours worth of work, and I get a phone call from our reception, and they said, "Rob, we've got someone in the foyer who wants to meet with you, a local company who's going to deliver the throwing cage for Gold Coast 2018 Com Games." So my sport manager, Jamie, and I went down, had the meeting, Trevor. What we learnt very quickly is that Trevor knew more about this than we did. We had to get up to speed really quickly. Now, I am going to spoil the surprise. Trevor, you won that contract. We had to create an opportunity where we took the contract out of the equipment and we put it into the track build. So can you share with us how you actually went about winning that contract once we created that opportunity?
Yeah, I'll probably start with we'd registered on the portal. We didn't hear anything for a while, so we were getting a bit worried. So we then contact you, and then as you said, we met about it. And the product we had was unique in the industry. It had a lot of benefits to it, and we really needed to get this into the games. So you instructed us to go to the builder who was transforming the stadium, and so we went to them. They said, "No, look, we're signing a contract in a couple of days' time with an overseas company to do the build of the track and all the equipment." So we went back to you and said, "Hey, what can you do about this? Can you at least get us to put our bid in?" So you instructed the builder to accept the bid from us. So we then put a bid together, and we thought that our best way of getting this in was to rent the cages for $1 each. So we then charged a fee to manage the cage during the event and take them down, etc. So we then had both cages sold after the games at 85% of the market value. We then got TV coverage from it, so it was then accepted internationally. This new design is at the top level, and the things that have come from that have been huge for us.
Now we're going to come to those things that came from the games, but as a born and bred Scotsman, the deal of $1 was the deal of a lifetime. So you can see why Trevor won the contract. But what amazed me is that I found out after the games he had sold it for 85%. So really he's the genius in this story. Now, Trevor, that wasn't the only thing you provided. So the business, and as for Brice and the others have talked about, we get hundreds of requests for multiple different items. They would come to Jamin and I and say, we want you to procure these items, and we go, well, who supplies that? We don't know. So Jamin and I would ring you, and your response every time was,
yeah, we could do that.
So can you take us through some of the other things that you provided for the games?
Well, one of the things that was interesting to us was, I think you had a tender there which had 20 miscellaneous items on it. And one of those was these buggies that you can see on the screen now. So they're remote control buggies that transport the implements, the hammer throw, the discus and the javelins, to bring them back. So we ended up building these in our garage, and we got a local company to do the fiberglass work on it. Brought my brother up from Adelaide to do all the lighting control, motion controlled lighting on it. And that was one of the special interest things we had. We also did some seating for the beach volleyball competitors. I think we made the crates to carp the winners' podiums around the countryside, and yeah, there were several items like that. And even the boxings, apparently someone donated a bell for the boxing, but they didn't have a stand for it, so we got a stand made up, and yeah, so it's just the little things and some of the big things.
Now, one of the people from Business Chamber Queensland told me that you also got into the event with the buggies with lollies past security. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, that was correct. We had to, those buggers, we had to deliver them to the stadium, and we were then told that we had to go down to a venue in Ashmore at 4 a.m. Because they had a gamma scanner there, so we had to take the car and the trailer with all these equipment in it. And it got passed, except they took a bag of lollies out of our glove box. So they must have thought it was exploding jelly babies or something or other. So, yeah.
So it's a good point there you talked about having to get up at 4 a.m. Now, as a games, we are highly demanding as a client. You know, we have fixed timelines, we're on a world stage. Was it all roses, this contract? Can you tell us what the actual reality is of dealing with one of these contracts?
Okay, when we quoted, we probably quoted like we would quote any other job. So you do your, how much time you think you're going to put into it, materials, etc., a bit of profit there for you. And the reality was that you end up spending a lot more time on the paperwork, you're answering emails, you're going to meetings, and you haven't really covered that in your quoting. And I think if you, in hindsight, we would probably be more readily accepting the extra amount of time to put into it. But it's just something that you don't at the time, and you're sort of a bit worried about the amount of manpower that you're putting into this that you're not getting paid for it, type of thing. But the other thing too is losing track of your general work that you need to be, general customers that you, long-term customers you've got to keep supplying to. So we were fortunate enough that my wife Brad spent most of her time trying to keep our customers satisfied, because I was taken out for a good part of that period. But it was certainly well worth it. But I would say that because of the extra time you're putting into it, if you're aware of that in the first place, you'll then enjoy the process more.
Yeah, I think that's a great message. So for those who are interested in these sort of contracts, you really do need to be focused and mindful of that additional element. But you did talk about the opportunity and what that created, and so what went out to the world was images like this. Matt Denny throwing on a global scale with an audience of several billion. What did the Gold Coast 2018 Games contract, what was the impact of that for you and your business?
There's probably two sides to that. One is the cages themselves. We got international recognition from that, and we had those cages certified by World Athletics beforehand. And we then took that. We actually built a 10:1 scale model of that cage. Took that over to an exhibition in Cologne, and from there we met a English company who visits all the tracks around the UK and services equipment, etc. So they became our agent, and to date we've now got 25 of those cages in the UK. It was used in the Birmingham Games, and we've got a couple on the water at the moment going over there, and we're also going over to Cologne later this month to put the cage into Europe as well.
And what's that meant for your supply chain, so the number of businesses that you support, Trevor?
Yes, I think it's an important point that we didn't pick up early on, but we did a tally afterwards, after we'd finished all our work. We'd spent money with over 50 different suppliers of equipment, so that'd be wheels, timber, steel, all sorts of materials that we needed to do that. So had you originally gone with the overseas company, we wouldn't have spread that money around to 50 other businesses.
Yeah, which is fantastic. But what about, we did ask you to create a whole number of new items that had never been delivered before, hockey cages, athlete shelters. How many of those have entered into your new product line?
Yes, we hadn't. We've made hockey goals before. We then put it. Ended up getting the contract to do the other items. So we had built the players' shelters and a technical shelter, which is basically a cabin that holds 6 people and for the judging and the like. So after the games, we then worked out how to break that down into a more transportable item, because we ended up putting it on a flatbed truck and craning it off. So we ended up making that in a modular form, and we now make that's now a major standard product for us. So we supply to all the states and put it into AFL grounds. It was used in the gather rounds recently in the AFL, and soccer grounds, rugby grounds. So it's an important product for us.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So you can gather that Trevor is an incredible innovator. He's one of those special people that look at something that's standard and go, well, that's rubbish, I can do something way better than that. So as we look towards 2032, I know you've got a couple of things that you're really focused on, and audience today, you get a special treat, you get to see some of that. Trevor, can you talk us through a couple of your innovations that you're looking at towards 2032?
Yes, we've got 2 particular products that we've been working on for some time, and one of them is a collapsible hurdle or a pivoting hurdle, and this particular hurdle's got a lot of benefits to the athlete, as the initial impact when people knock the hurdle with their knee or their foot, it's got a lot softer initial impact, and then it builds up to the actual tip over force. So that particular product doesn't actually comply with the rules. So Athletics Australia has put in a submission to World Athletics to change the rules to cater for the new design, and we're expecting to hear from that in the next week or so. We believe that's going to get passed. And the other one is the hammer cage. So we have a new, what I call a dream cage. So talking to athletes and venue owners, what problems they have with cages. So we came up with this particular cage, and it's got lights in it, it's got electric motors in it. You can raise the net up to its top height, so you can then see runners running around without looking through the net. So we've got a scale model of that, which we're taking over to Cologne, and we'll find out the reaction from the international community, whether that now becomes another product for us.
Which is fantastic, and you've seen it here today, but I think the other thing to share is that not only are you creating these innovations, but you're also challenging the IAAF and the world rules to actually comply with your products. So you are starting to set the world standard from a company based on the Gold Coast, an opportunity at the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games. So, audience, can you please join me in thanking Trevor? Ladies and gentlemen, as we move on, I'd like to invite Cindy Hook, Brisbane 2032 CEO, onto the stage to share the procurement program and the criteria. Thanks, Cindy.